minutes, but to go ahead and get started, I will turn it over to the GM CEO report, Mr. Greenwood.
Thank you, Chair Power. A couple of items of note here in the GM CEO report. So without further ado, I'd like to just get started with the first slide, please. And this is the one that talks about the season of construction and disruption at MARTA and, of course, throughout our service areas. So I'm not talking about temporal seasons, of course. I'm talking about the stage we're at in our projects. The key message here is that Pardon Our Progress is going to be the new normal for MARTA as we are undertaking each project. The operational and customer impact is front and center for each of these projects. So we keep saying that, we're embarking on the most ambitious expansion program in 40 years, but until now, those have been words on a page. There are now signs on the streets, there are shovels in the ground, and they are bringing, as I said, construction and disruption. But it is a sign of progress, and I think our customers will come to understand that. They've seen past track replacement TR4 projects going really, really well, and we have a detailed operations mitigation plan and communications plan that is deep and wide. So on the previous slide, you saw reference to some of the current projects that we're doing. Indian Creek Station Rehab, currently single tracking to perform platform work. We're doing East Lake, the pedestrian bridge, so we're single tracking there. Parking lot paving at Brookhaven. The 5 Point Station Rehab is currently single tracking for a couple of weekends a month to perform that platform work. And the Summerhill BRT has impacts to the alignment already. And then in terms of what's upcoming, the airport station rehab starts on April 8th, as we spoke about last time. That'll go till May 19th with a bus bridge. The 5 Points transformation, of course, is another big project that we're going on, and that's going to start in June of 24. Brookhaven Station has a rehab and double crossover installation. West End, we're starting the parking lot paving. Chambly parking lot paving, both of those on April 15th. Lennox Station Rehab will have single tracking starting the end of April. And in College Park, we're planning that work now. So lots happening in that stage. Next slide, please. And this is common throughout the country. You'll see excerpts here in the past year from places like Philadelphia, New York, Washington, D.C., and Portland. And all of that to say that we're not alone. This is a time for transit that if our intention is to expand and better serve our customers, then this is a necessary part of it. Lots of operational benefits to the work we're doing. We obviously are sharing the vision for station and system improvements with our customers. And there's a sense of momentum of a region that's in expansion and repair and progress. So the important thing for us is that we're bringing our customers with us. They're involved in the engagement phases throughout planning and design. And of course, they're informed during the disruption phase. But stay tuned because each of these projects will also be briefed here as we get closer and closer to that disruptive state. So as we move through the pain to achieve the gain, I trust that everyone will stay with us and partner with us in sharing the information to their prospective jurisdictional peers. The next slide, please. Thank you for that. Chair, the next thing I wanted to talk about was Transit Operator Appreciation Day. That's next on the agenda. So I have a quick slide there that's really just showing a little ticket that we've shared with our Transit All-Star theme. I'm not sure if we can get that up on the screener. Yep, that's it. Perfect. Thank you. So as we know, Monday, March 18th is Transit Operator Appreciation Day. MARTA, of course, is extending that throughout the week. And I just wanted to share a few things that we're doing here. We've got that strong plan built around the Transit All-Star theme. Every operator will receive a thank you card from me and a Transit All-Star lapel pin. We'll have posters of the thank you card on the digital screens in the stations and in bus shelters and in the garages and at HQ. Operators will also have food and refreshments delivered to them at their facilities. We will launch an email and social media campaign thanking our operators and encouraging our riders to thank an operator. So all of that starts on Monday. Every transit employee, not just operators, will also get a note of thanks from me, and I'll request that they in turn thank an operator on Monday and throughout the week. Next slide, please. So the next slide is about the Riders Advisory Council, and it really is more of a reminder and a request from me to the board members and to the public. So really you can see there that we've got 42 applications received to date. There's a broad demographic of representation involved in that. The deadline to apply is Friday, March 29th, so I want to encourage everyone to share the opportunity with their networks. There's more information on the Riders Advisory Council, and a link to apply is also online at itsmarta.com. But the RSC meets the first Wednesday of every month, and this will be our third cohort, with the first being in 2020 to 22 and the second being 2022 to 2024. Very influential group, very involved group, and they've done things like opine on the design of our new train and how we move people from point A to point B. So very rewarding work for anyone that's interested to join us. And finally, with the next slide, I will ask for help on this one because, as you know, it's the time of year that we have done this in the past, and there's a lot of financial market conditions that are similar to last year. There are several opportunities that MARTA should be taking advantage of. And so here to walk us through this is our very own newly appointed Chief Financial Officer, Mr. Kevin Hurley.
Thank you, Kali. I appreciate that. Good afternoon, Chair Powers, MARTA Board of Directors, Mr. Greenwood. I'm here today to present for your information 2 bond transactions that, due to, as Kali said, current financial market conditions, that staff would like to execute to realize additional net present value debt service savings on our outstanding bonds. Next slide. The agenda for today is to present the refunding opportunities, key points of those opportunities, identifying the selected underwriting pool, as well as highlighting the touch points and approvals that are required by the MARTA board. Next slide. Staff is looking at 2 opportunities that mimic 2 transactions that we executed about this same time last year. The transactions are a cash optimization transaction and a tender transaction. First, the cash optimization transaction, MARTA would use cash from our existing reserves to defease by establishing an escrow account to pay off approximately $127 million of our outstanding 2016B bonds. Subsequently, in May, at the MARTA board meeting, staff would request approval of a new money bond issue at lower interest rates to replace the cash outlay used to establish the escrow account. Based on current market conditions, the estimated net present value debt service savings on this transaction would be between $18 million and $22 million. The second transaction is a tender transaction where MARTA would sell new tax-exempt bonds at lower rates and use the proceeds to buy back tax-exempt and taxable higher interest rate bonds, thereby lowering the cost of the debt service. We are estimating the participation rate of the tax-exempt bondholders to be about 25% and the participation rate of the taxable bondholders to be about 15%. The potential net present value savings on the tender transaction is estimated to be between $4 and $14 million. Next slide. With that, I wanted to point out some key points of the transactions. We have a strong, experienced underwriting pool, legal team, and advisory team that has participated in these types of complicated transactions. There will be 2 new bond series designated as Series 2024A and 2024B, and we anticipate that both will be assigned green bond status by a second-party verifier. The cash optimization transaction will require the approval of a defeasance resolution that will be presented to the board at the March 28th Business Management Committee meeting. And once approved at the April 11th full board meeting, staff would then fund the escrow for the defeasance on April the 17th. On May 8th, we would price the new money bonds and seek board approval on May 9th, with the closing scheduled for May 22nd. The tender transaction would begin with an invitation to tender being posted on April 18th, and the tenders would be due back on May the 3rd. The pricing would also be conducted on May 8th with a request for approval of the board on May 9th, and the closing is also scheduled for the same date, May 22nd. Next slide. The underwriting pool we've selected for these transactions is based on their experience and successful track record of executing these types of complicated transactions. The lead underwriter will be Jeffries LLC, and the co-senior underwriter will be Wells Fargo. Loop Capital Markets and Siebert Williams Shank will serve as our diverse firms, with Loop Capital also having a local Atlanta presence. Both diverse firms have executed and performed well in similar complicated transactions as these. Next slide. So this slide presents our board engagement. This, to include the presentation today, that I'm giving you today. The first board action will be a resolution taken on March 28th to the BMC for consideration of the full board to defease the 2016 B bonds, with and then the anticipated full board approval on April the 11th. This will be followed by the May 9th work session, where we'll present pricing and savings results prior to the full board meeting, and then we'll ask that the board approve the resolutions to execute, sell, and deliver the new money bond series 2024A and 2024B at the following board meeting. Next slide. Thank you, and I return the floor back to Mr. Greenwood, and would be happy to entertain any questions.
First of all, great presentation. I just wanted to echo congratulations.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much.
Mr. Pond?
I've got a question, Kevin. I understand the first transaction, it's the second bonds. You're basically selling a high interest rate bond because it's more valuable to the people, but then, but then we're going to be, the second bond will be a little higher, but the net savings is the 4 to 14 million, correct?
On the first,
No, the second series.
on the second series, yes, we would sell bonds, new bonds that would be at a lower rate, because we have a combination of taxable and tax exempt that are at higher rates. And then the ones that we would pay off would be, we'd sell the bonds, pay off the old bonds, and the residual debt service reduction would be taken into consideration. So what we'll be paying now on the debt service for the bonds that are tendered would be higher than the new money bond, the amount on the new money bonds that we would subsequently issue.
So the variance of 4 to 14 million would depend on how long you held the bond, is that?
The variance is really structured based on who accepts the tender. They don't have to, you know, if we were doing a bond refunding, we would call the bonds and they would all be returned to MARTA. In this instance, we're asking our bondholders to sell us their bonds, and some will participate and some will not. And so we have kind of a large variance there because we're not positive how many bondholders will participate.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Direct?
And the 25% and 15% that you are using here, that reflects the participation last year?
It reflects what's going on in the market right now, that the underwriters are doing these transactions with other organizations, and this is kind of the participation that they're seeing now based on the interest rates on our bonds and things like that. So they put together this estimate for us.
Thank you.
Yes, sir?
Chair Powers, I just have a couple of other items, upcoming events to announce here. In addition to the board committees and board meetings in your packet, a handful of engagements. That is the Riders Advisory Council is happening on Wednesday, April 3rd from 6 till 7:30 p.m. The MARTA Accessibility Committee will meet on Tuesday, May 14th from 10 a.m. till 11:30 a.m. And some upcoming APTA meetings as well. The APTA Legislative Conference will happen Sunday, April 7th until Tuesday, April 9th. The Transit Board Members Seminar will happen Saturday, July 13th, until Tuesday, July 16th. And the APTA Transform Conference will be Sunday, September 29th until Wednesday, October 2nd. And Chair, that ends the GM CEO report.
All right, we'll wait for just a moment until we get a quorum, but just from, I did have one thing to add as chair, and I will add it again at 1:30. Board member Rita Scott is qualified to run in the DeKalb County Commission race, which under our bylaws means that she has to recuse from all votes and cannot make any statements or ask any questions as well. So certainly, I know many of you have heard her thoughtful questions and input, and I didn't want you to think that anything had changed from that nature, but we're certainly, she will just be prohibited from doing that until the conclusion of the election. So I just wanted to note that for the minutes. I'll note that again at 1:30, and we'll just give it just a moment for us to have another board member. Thank you. If you want to turn on your microphone.
I'm wondering, as having a representative on the board that can't speak and can't vote, I'm not sure I understand the wisdom in that from the standpoint of being on the board. And I'm like you, Rita, adds a lot to the board, but if she's going to participate here, and I wonder if we've asked DeKalb County what they think about that, from the standpoint of being able to appoint somebody else that can speak and can vote here.
And I'm going to turn it over to both Mr. Andrews and our outside legal counsel, but what we're bound by are the MARTA Act rules, which are pretty specific about recusal versus resignation. But Mr. Andrews.
Yeah, so let me try and answer all the questions. The bylaws were amended, 4 years ago to add this section to speak specifically to recusal because the board doesn't have the authority through the bylaws to override or supersede the MARTA Act or state law. Neither state law or the MARTA Act requires the removal of a board member if they do qualify for a higher office. I think you've seen a couple of situations of that recently. I think in the Atlanta City Council, you had one council member step down to run for Fulton County clerk. So that's required under the state law. That's not required here, and so we can't go as far as to supersede the MARTA Act, which is a state law, and the state law, the Georgia Code sections. As far as whether or not DeKalb County has any concerns with Ms. Scott continuing to be on the board without a vote, we have been assured that the DeKalb County Commissioner, or Mr. Thurman, is fine with Ms. Scott sitting here through the end of the election process. I'd also remind you that our bylaws and the MARTA Act, more in particular, allows board members to, miss 4 consecutive meetings before they're given up to not recused, but have abandoned their position, So it's no different than if Ms. Scott decided not to come for the next 3 months, she would still be allowed to be on the board. So at this time, it's really no harm, no foul to DeKalb County at this time. Hopefully that answers all your questions.
Okay.
Mr. Frierson.
Yes, so help me understand, so she is allowed to attend, but she's not allowed to engage in any questions or vote on any issues? Is that what that is?
Yeah, the conversation between Ms. Justice Sears and I was that, the bylaws say you need to recuse yourself, so that means no voting. Justice Sears felt, the real intent was to avoid any kind of influence by a potential elected official and therefore it'd be best for her and the board, and consistent with our ethics code, to not even have that hint of impropriety. And therefore, it would be best if she wanted to attend, maybe ask, she can ask something like, did I hear you correctly? But not be part of any debate, discussion, or influence votes in any way.
Okay, all right, thank you.
All right, now that we have a quorum, can I have a motion to approve the February 8th, 2024 work session minutes? All right, I have a motion. May I have a second? Any discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Ms. Jones, is it showing up on your screen? Okay, all right, if we can please list Ms. Jones as a for, the motion passes. The executive session, may I have a motion to adjourn the work session or not adjourn the work session, may I have a motion, to go into executive session, moved by Mr. Pond, may I have a second? Mr. Frierson, all in favor, please raise your hand. All right, we'll be in executive session. Get started. All right, I'm going to call to order the March 14th, 2024 Board of Directors meeting. Mr. Andrews, are there any public comments to report via email or voicemail?
No.
Okay, and there's no one signed up to speak this afternoon. I'm going to make just the same statement that I did at our beginning of our work session now that we have just a few more folks here. Ms. Scott has qualified to run for DeKalb County Commission seat 4. And so certainly she's going to be participating in that endeavor under the MARTA Act, which is state law. She's not required to resign for the board, but she must recuse from all votes and is going to be prohibited from making statements or asking questions. Just wanted to put that out there because I know that we've all benefited from her thoughtful questioning, and certainly her recusal from those votes is not an indication of any approval or disapproval of what the business of the MARTA Board of Directors. Commissioner Thurman has indicated that DeKalb is okay with her proceeding in her current role until the election, of course, is concluded in June, and then we'll take up any additional matters depending on the outcome of that in June. It's just a reminder that MARTA board members are allowed up to 4 consecutive absences, and so even if this is viewed as a constructive absence, which I don't believe it is, but under those rules, she would still be allowed to remain. Anything further on that, Mr. Andrews?
No, Your Honor.
All right.
Chairperson,
Sure.
Madam, just one quick question is,
Sure.
if she were to get elected in May, is it the opinion of this board that she can serve until she's installed?
I will ask that to our general counsel.
No, if she was elected, then she would be required to step down at that time.
Immediately?
Yes.
Is that right? Okay, thank you.
All right. Thank you. All right. Can I have a motion to approve the February 8th of 2024 board meeting minutes? All right. I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, please vote. All right, the motion passes. We'll turn now to board committee reports. For the business management report, Mr. Durrett.
Madam Chair, the Business Management Committee met on Thursday, February the 22nd of 2024 and approved the following resolutions. A, resolution authorizing the modification and contractual authorization for workers' compensation managed care organization, RFP P42659. B, resolution authorizing the modification and contractual authorization for the Trapeze Master Agreement, RFP P34149. C, resolution authorizing award of a contract for station phones Phase 2, IFB B50412. D, resolution authorizing the award of a contract for the procurement of medical, pharmacy, vision, flexible spending accounts, and stop-loss health benefits, RFP P50213. I request approval of these resolutions.
Can I have a motion and a second, please? Having been properly moved and seconded, any discussion?
I didn't mean to vote against.
All right, we will move Ms. Hardage from the against column. Any further discussion? All right, please vote. All right, it passes.
Madam Chair, this concludes my report.
Okay. The Planning and Capital Programs Committee met on Thursday, February the 22nd of 2024 and approved the following resolutions. A, resolution authorizing the solicitation of proposals for the procurement of professional consultant services for Clayton County South Lake BRT Transit-Oriented Development Planning Study, RFP P50484. B, resolution authorizing a solicitation for proposals for the procurement of on-call professional services for the Metro Atlanta Transit Infrastructure and TOD Accelerator, RFP P50483. C, resolution authorizing the solicitation of proposals for the procurement of design-build services for the new rail car auxiliary power and stinger power upgrades, RFP P50456. D, resolution authorizing the approval of service modifications for April 20th, 2024 on routes 192 and 195. I request approval of these resolutions. All right, I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, please vote. All right, it passes. Mr. Pond for Operations and Safety.
Madam Chair, the Operations and Safety Committee met on Thursday, February the 22nd, 2024, and approved the following resolutions. A, resolution authorizing the award of a contract for heating, ventilation, air conditioning, and refrigeration services for MARTA's headquarters complex, IFB B50403. Resolution B, authorizing the award of a contract for procurement of MARTA headquarters complex for janitorial services, IFB B50367. C, resolution authorizing the award of a contract for safety, health, and industrial hygiene consulting services, RFP P50139. D, resolution authorizing the modification in contractual authorization for MARTA's Lift Partnership Letter of Agreement L48275. And E, resolution authorizing the modification and the contractual authorization for MARTA Uber Partnership Services during service disruption, letter of agreement L46827. I request approval of these resolutions.
All right, having been properly moved and seconded, any discussion? Seeing none, please vote. All right, the resolutions pass.
The committee also received the following briefing: operation impacts of the upcoming capital program work at the airport station rehabilitation project. Madam Chair, this concludes my report.
All right, thank you, Mr. Pond. Moving to external relations, Ms. Hardage.
Madam Chair, the External Relations Committee met on Thursday, February 22nd, 2024, and received the following briefings. A, Government Affairs Update. B, Civil Rights Act 60th Anniversary and Black History Month Observance. Madam Chair, this concludes my report.
Thank you, Ms. Hardage. Now we'll move to the resolution authorizing the award of a contract for the procurement of supplemental bus shuttle service, IFB B50494. Mr. Wright.
Chair Powers, board members, and Mr. Greenwood, good afternoon. I am seeking board approval authorizing the award of a contract for the procurement of a supplemental bus shuttle service, IFB B50494. Next slide, please. As a reminder, at last month's Operations and Safety Committee meeting, staff delivered a briefing on the operational impacts regarding the upcoming airport station rehabilitation project and the accompanying airport station closure plan.
Mr. Wright, if I can interrupt you for just a moment, I don't have this problem, but will you pull up the microphone? Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
I'm normally at the right height without a stool, so thanks.
Sure thing. During my remarks, I advised the committee that MARTA would deploy a shuttle bus service to maintain service continuity to and from the airport. To recap, the airport station will be closed for up to 6 weeks. Transit service will continue in and out of the airport via shuttle service. Shuttle service hours will mirror our current span of service hours of approximately 22 hours. Logistically, we will execute a load and go regime between College Park Station and the airport lower level north terminal with 10 buses, 30 operators over 3 shifts for 42 days. We expect to deliver a 12-minute or less headway. In other words, a rider at College Park or the airport should wait no longer than 12 minutes for a shuttle to arrive. MARTA staff and wayfinding signage will be present at both College Park and the airport, and this plan is scalable. Next slide, please. Regarding the business case, the procurement of the shuttle service supports the airport station rehabilitation program. And our driving principle in this procurement was to do no harm. And what I mean by that is that we did not want to take away resources in the form of operators and buses from our fixed route bus service, where we're already challenged with operator availability issues. And we did not want to harm our riders depending on those services. Furthermore, we depend on our fixed route to assist us through service disruptions in rail when they occur. So occasionally there are going to be service disruptions in rail, and we will use our fixed route buses to bridge around those disruptions, and it's important that we maintain that contingency during the closure. So it was with this in mind that we, staff determined that a contracted solution was best for our riders. Next slide, please. Regarding the solicitation, an invitation for bid was released on February 23rd. Bids were received on March 11th. A public reading of those bid results was held on March 12th. There were 5 proponents. The proposed total bid amount for this procurement is coming in at $2,080,400. You can see the breakdown between the base of 42 days or 6 weeks. That's what we envision spending. We did, in fact, add options as contingencies just in case the closure extends. We don't envision that happening. Next slide, please. Regarding the proponent that came in with the lowest bid, that was both responsible, it's MTI Limo and Shuttle Services. They're a 34-year-old organization. They're based in College Park, just around the corner from the airport. And as you can see right there are some of their relevant contracts. They've over the years, they've spent a lot of time on the airport footprint, so they know the dynamic operational requirements of the airport. Next slide, please. Therefore, the Division of Operation respectfully request authorization for a resolution. Respectfully request authorization to enter into a contract with MTI Limo and Shuttle Services for an amount not to exceed $2,080,400. Next slide. Thank you, Chair Powers. I return the matter back to you for consideration.
All right, if I can have a motion in a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, if you can please vote. And the resolution passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Andrews, are there any other matters to come before the board?
Yes, ma'am. We have 2 quick matters that came out of our executive session discussions. The first is would be a motion to approve a workers' comp settlement in the amount of $209,375 for the claimant Shavonda Kidd.
I will move approval. Is there a second? All right. Mr. Durrett seconds. All in favor, please raise your hand. All opposed? Any abstentions? All right, it passes.
The second one is would be a motion to approve a settlement in the amount of $485,000 for the lawsuit Myers Rollins versus MARTA, Kylie Greenwood, Melissa Monax, Luz Guerrero, and LaShonda Dawkins.
All right, is there a motion? Mr. Durrett? Mr. Frierson seconds. All in favor, please raise your hand. All opposed? Any abstentions? All right, it passes. Anything else, Mr. Andrews?
No, ma'am.
Are there any other matters? Seeing none, we are adjourned. Y'all have a great rest of your week.